but it will come up again in the practical exercise, and it will come up again in the final, this concept of apparent authority. So the general rule so far has been, if an agent acts with authority, they're not liable, the principal is. If the agent acts with no authority, then they are liable, the principal is not. General rule, right? This says, taking it a step further, that there are two types of authority. What are they? Actual and apparent. Spelling it right? That's kind of fun. Another way of saying that is apparent authority is not actual authority. Did you all catch that? What did I just say? It's not actual authority. Good. I didn't catch that. So, and actual authority, if you split that out, is either what or what? Express or implied. And express authority is either oral or written. So, if you were flow charting this all out, you got a lot to check for in a scenario. Is there actual authority? Well, let's go back to that example we used in the group discussion, right? What was the actual authority that Brenda originally had? Written authority, right? So it was expressed. Written, expressed, actual authority. Right? Then it was modified orally. She had oral authority to buy less. Right? Oral, expressed, actual authority. But did Brenda do what she was actually authorized to do? No. Good. But don't stop there. What else do we have to check for? Whether Brenda had apparent authority. So when we get through with that, did she have actual authority question, we have to figure out, is there any authority she could have without having actual authority? And the answer is yes, if she had apparent authority. Another way we said that last week was, if it appears to the third party Brenda has authority, then she may not be liable and the principal may be liable. It depends on where they got that appearance from, right? And we had to show how the principal, commodity, led the third party to believe Brenda had authority she didn't really have. That's what that is a estoppel. So estoppel is all about somebody doing something. Did I just drop my mic? Hello, hello, hello. Yeah, it's not staying on very well. Maybe I'll stick it in a buttonhole here. Oh, sorry. Audio's not picking all this up, but there we go. Thanks. I knew when you were looking down something was going on. So there's still the idea that the principal did something that the third party relied on, and as a result of that reliance, they shouldn't be able to back out. And that's apparent authority. Then there's another option here where originally the agent didn't have authority, but they were given it after the fact. That was called ratification. Remember that? And what did we say about Brenda? After Brenda did what she did she go back and Dennis say, oh, that's okay, it's authorized now? No. So you're looking for these things. Was there something that gave the agent actual authority? If there was no actual authority, was there something that maybe the principal did to make it appear that there was authority? And if not, if there was no authority, did they do anything afterwards to give somebody authority they didn't have at the time? You get through all that, and that will help you answer that question. Who has liability, principal or agent? So I might, asterisk mark that slide as an important little checklist that you'll need as you go through the types of authority that an agent does or doesn't have. And these other slides kind of go into detail about each type of authority. I threw this one out at you last week. The equal dignity rule, which says that if the contract's required to be in writing, then the agency needs to be in writing. We took it a step further and said, if you're going to modify an agent's written authority, you ought to do that in writing. And then do what with it? Communicate to who? The third party, to get rid of what kind of authority? Apparent authority, right? That's why you're communicating to the third party. Which also comes up important and is important if you fire Brenda, right? I mean, in our scenario, you called Brenda and said, Dennis called and said, don't do that, do this. But what if Dennis picked up the phone and said, you're fired? Still, Dennis should do what? Notify the third party that she's been dealing with if they're known and they're an existing customer. Hey, Brenda's not our agent anymore. So the equal dignity rule says put it in writing if the contract has to be in writing. There are some exceptions. For example, there are situations where an officer of a corporation needs the flexibility to be able to act on a daily basis without having everything they do in writing. So if it's a major ticket item, like buying real property on behalf of the corporation or large assets, maybe, but not every single decision that they make. That would be very difficult to do. And I think we may have mentioned power of attorney last week. That agency that you give to somebody else in writing to do things on your behalf, especially, when it talks about ordinary versus durable, when you're unable to make decisions for yourself. And I don't know if I mentioned it, that agency can terminate in different ways, including your death. If you die, the power of attorney has no more effect. Another way of saying that is people who run around saying, look, I have power of attorney, they don't have it anymore if the person they have it for is deceased. You need a different writing. If you want to give somebody written permission to do stuff for you after you die, you do what? A will. That's what a will is. It's written instructions to a personal representative to act on your behalf when you can't anymore. All right. Implied authority, we mentioned this a little bit last week, but going into a little more detail about how you might get it, comes from express authority. It either comes as a result of those things that are reasonably related to whatever the express authority is, or some custom or trade or industry where that's just the way it's done. So in the example of an agent selling my house, maybe the agreement just says, sell my house. But what type of things would be implied with that? Showing it. Signs. Listing it. Right. In fact, if I can't get those things, I might just want to get out of the agency because it's not real helpful to not have it listed or any marketing. And we mentioned apparent authority and Estoppel. Yeah.
How does it go? How does apparent authority work when, say, Brenda had been fired and
Brenda had been fired
from commodities, and they had notified all of their existing customers.
Right. Yes.
But Brenda goes out, I'm fired, I want revenge, and forms relationships with.
Well, that's what Brenda does.
Right.
See, apparent authority, like it says right there at the top, has to do with what the principal did. Well, if they're not a current client and they've had no dealings with the principal, then the principal hasn't done anything to lead them to believe Brenda has authority. She doesn't.
Even if she still has possession of like a letter that says she's got authority to do it?
Well,
I think that your best bet in that situation is if you're going to put something in writing and you change that person's authority or you fire them, to always make sure you at least give them written notification that that's the case. And put something out there that says that that agency is no longer of effect.
Okay.
So I'm not saying you're good, don't worry about it at all, but what else can you do? You can't fly a plane over the city with a banner that says, I've just terminated Brenda, if you're thinking about doing. We gave her a letter, watch out.
But does that, in those particular circumstances, is the principal liable for anything that?
I don't think, I think what you're getting at is what is it that the principal did in our group discussion. I don't think it was the writing. I think it was the failure to modify that writing and the oral conversation.
I guess my concern would be is at what point is the principal no longer liable for what Brenda's out there doing?
I don't think the principal's liable for things that Brenda does without any authority.
Okay.
So if she buys a car on behalf of them, she had no authority to do that. Or if she's been terminated and there's nothing the principal did to lead people to believe she still has that authority, I think she'd be okay. I think they'd be okay.
Okay.
All right. And this is a case, without going into that the facts of that particular case, I think the point is that when you deal with a hospital or a clinic or something like that, you're not entirely clear on who's an agent, an employee, independent contractor, right? You see somebody in a hospital, they may be an employee of the hospital, they might be contracting, they might be seeing their own patients at the hospital. There's a variety of different situations that can come up. And one question is how you make it appear to the third party. And if somebody is going to be an independent contractor, then you better treat them that way and not give third parties the impression they have authority to do things that they don't have the authority to do. Now, we mentioned ratification last week. Here are the factors that courts look at in determining if ratification took place. And I think the big one is just afterwards, the principal knowing all the things the agent did that they weren't supposed to, says that's okay. So what was the example? I said I was selling my house and there was something in my house I didn't want to sell. What was it in this class?
Boat in the garage.
Yeah, okay, the boat. I know that doesn't make you feel special because I've got different examples for different classes. But so yours is the boat. And let's say the agent comes back to me and says, I got the sale, everything's good, and I say, is it just like we agreed? And they go, oh yeah, and they put their thumb over the boat, right? Oh yeah, go ahead, sign here, right? What's the problem with that list up there? What are they probably not addressing?
The entire deal.
Right, the entire deal, and number 5, the principal must know all the material facts involved in the transaction. And the fact that my boat's going to go with it when I told him not to is a material fact. And depending on how nice the boat is, could be pretty costly to me. So later I could argue not ratification. I did not ratify something I didn't know about. Now sometimes that can be a dispute, right? The agent saying I disclosed everything. And yes, it's true, it's contrary to what permission I was given originally, but they did say it's okay. So,
but that goes back under 2.
Right, did I affirm the entire deal? So if you're an agent, let's say, that instead of me talking about me being principal, know everything, let's say you're an agent and you're selling something, and as part of that deal, something else is going to be thrown in that wasn't originally part of the deal. What do you want to make sure you get from the principal? Affirmation to everything, especially what's changed. So you not only want the principal's signature on the bottom line, you want the principal's initials beside the thing that you changed. Because later, if not, they're going to come back against you and say, you snuck that by me, I never agreed. In fact, here it is in writing, I told you not to do this. So as an agent, to protect yourself, you're going to make sure if you change what you were authorized to do, that the principal signs off. In fact, you're probably going to want written authority from them in the first place. All right, so we talked about different types of liability last week during the group discussion, and on that one slide that had tort liability. What was the other one? It's at the top of the slide. Contract liability, right? We talked about contract liability. So this is looking at it from a different perspective. Not so much whether Brenda or Commodity is liable under contract, but instead how much the third party knows about the principal. Again, general rule, most situations, buyers know that agents represent someone else, the seller. And in that situation, agent's not liable, principal is. Yeah?
So how would that work out with something like eBay, where very little detail is given to the stuff as to who the seller is? And you're going through an agent, eBay itself.
Right, so eBay is an e-agent. There's a slide coming up on that. You're a buyer, and in a lot of cases, sellers are abiding by some terms in terms of putting their auction up there, and eBay serves as an intermediary, and you know it's not eBay selling you it. You know it's someone else. The question is, you know it's someone else, do you know who they are? You may or you may not. I mean, sometimes you've got a screen name, and behind that, maybe you don't know too much information. So on this list up there, what would that be? Would that be disclosed, partially disclosed, or undisclosed? Yeah, you know there's someone else, you just don't know who it is. You know, you're not, like sometimes in Amazon. I was at Amazon the other day. I was looking for a cable. Found out I didn't need the cable, but anyway, that's another story. But I'm looking online, and I noticed that some things it says for sale by Amazon. Other things it says, Amazon's the intermediary. I'm actually buying it from, who knows, someplace else. So in some cases, I know there's someone else. I may not know who it is. But on Amazon, I knew it was somebody else, and I knew who it was. So why do we go through this drill? Why do we care? Because generally, it doesn't really matter how much or how little we know about the principal. We know the agent is dealing for someone else, and as long as they deal with the authority they have, they're not liable, and the principal is liable. The seller's going to be liable in your situation. So let's just run through that and then talk about why we care. Disclosed. We know there's someone else, and we know who it is. That's when the seller uses their real name. Partially disclosed. We know there's someone else, but we don't know exactly who it is. In Grand Rapids, quite a while ago now, there was a developer who wanted to buy some property, except they didn't want to tell anybody who they were, because they thought people in this neck of the woods would not like them here because of other projects they'd developed. They were in adult entertainment, right? And they were saying, we're not saying that's what we're going to do here. That's only what we've done in other places. So, but they instructed their agent, don't say who we are. Just say you represent somebody, but don't tell them. Well, that would be one reason why you wouldn't necessarily want somebody to know who you are, is they wouldn't like dealing with you. What other reasons could you think? Like another example I think of is Walt Disney. when he wanted to create a theme park. Initially, he's buying swampland pretty cheap, but right. But when people started figuring out what was going on, that the properties were connected to each other, something's up, and then when they figured out who, then the price went through the roof. So yeah, another reason it's not always dishonest. I mean, Walt Disney ever dishonest? I mean, come on, Disney. But you might have a lot of money and you don't want to give it to people. You make money, you have a lot of money because you don't give it all away, right? So if you're a family here in town, you want to buy some property somewhere, as soon as your name's mentioned, the price goes up. So that might be another reason. You think of any other reasons why you might not want the other party to know who you are? Maybe they don't like you. I don't know. Right? Like they don't mind what you do, but they don't like you. They told you they'd never sell to you, which can bring up some interesting issues. All right, so why do we care about all this? Because the general rule is, like I said, it really doesn't matter how much the agent knows about you. As long as the agent is acting with authority, then they're not liable. The principal, whoever they are, is liable. But as we move from disclosed to undisclosed, what kind of authority do we get rid of? Not on the slide anywhere. Apparent, good. You think about it, if apparent authority comes from the principal, it's what the principal said or did to lead a third party to believe. How can the principal do anything if the third party doesn't know about them? There's nothing they're saying or doing because they don't know they're even out there. And they don't know who it is. So as you move, I was drawing a graph, which I'm not sure if it illustrates my point. But you think in terms, the less the party knows about the principal, the less likely it is that there's apparent authority, right? And the more the agent acts for themselves and without any authority, the more chance there is the agent's going to be liable. Another way to look at this is this is the who to sue chart. If you don't know there's anyone out there, you're not going to sue them, right? If you think the person you're dealing with is the person, you're not going to sue anyone else. But if you know they represent someone else and you know who they are, you're going to sue everybody. Yeah?
In an undisclosed agreement, say that they got sued, could the agent roll over and give the information to who the principal?
Yeah, that's where we're going with this. What is that called? When, even though the third party didn't know about the principal, you as the agent are going to be able to turn around and make the principal paid up because you acted with authority. Not apparent authority because they didn't know there was anybody else, but actual or implied authority. What is that called? When they sue you because you're it. But then you go, even though you didn't know there was anybody else, I had authority. What is that called when you turn around and you seek? Starts with an I, long word. Ends in indemnification. Yes, good. Yes, indemnification. Right, remember? We had duties that were owed. Principal owes a duty of indemnification to the agent when the agent acts within their authority. And they get sued. And it's not their problem. They get to say, there was someone else, but I didn't do anything dishonest. I was acting for somebody who didn't want you to know who they were. And I had authority to do what I did. So then they get to turn around and seek indemnification from the principal. So yeah, that's a good question. The more or the less that the third party knows about the principal, the more careful you need to be. And this is probably not a statement I need to make, but the less the third party knows about the principal, the more you as an agent need to make sure you got your ducks in a row and are acting with actual authority. Like even written authority. Like, here you go. You didn't know there was someone else, but this is what I was authorized to do on their behalf. So that's what this slide is saying is a disclosed or partially disclosed principle, as long as the agent's acting within the scope of their authority, the principal is liable, the agent's not. It's really only when the agent acts with no authority that the agent is liable. And then the last thing it says on this slide that I didn't really get at is it's pretty straightforward. If I'm an agent and I have some type of authority to do what I did, then the principal's failure to perform is not my problem. So we've talked a lot about who's liable under the contract, the agent or the principal, but what I'm saying is once the contract's formed, principal comes to the table, doesn't do what they're supposed to, they breach it, they don't come through with the money or whatever, it's not the agent's problem. All right. Even if we don't know there's someone else, the agent doesn't have liability, and the principal is liable, unless, and then there's some situations up there where there might be some liability on the agent's behalf. If whatever it was that the parties, for an example, whatever it was that the parties agreed to have done really was personal service between the agent and the third party. Yes, maybe you were acting as an agent for this person that I didn't know existed out there, but what we had was between you and me.
We have an example of that.
What about the example of, what's his name, the Stan, the carpet salesman turned real estate agent in a day? Stan is out installing carpet on behalf of his employer. You know, he doesn't breach his duty of loyalty. He doesn't moonlight. He goes out as part of his job. He's a salesman and installer because he does everything, right? While he's there, someone says, I'm looking to have tile put down too, right? And he says, I'll do it. This is a contract between Stan and the homeowner. Even though it's a type of thing that the employer does, it wasn't made through the company. It was a personal contract between Stan and them. Which could happen. Your employees could be off delivering or doing something, and in the process they agree to do something personal that's not something you authorize them to do.
Is that wrong for them to do?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, there's all kinds of liability. Let's say I'm the UPS man or woman. I show up. They don't do this anymore, but they used to knock on your door and wait for you to answer. Now they do the old knock and run. Sometimes I hear them yell something. "Ah!" But anyway. Right? Don't they? What was that? Oh, and then you go look and there's a package there. So let's say I go to the door. Oh, no, better. Swan's man never, or woman, never, ours is a guy. But anyway, anybody have a Swan's lady? No, I don't know what's going on there. Should investigate. So, you know, they never run off on me. They're always there asking me if I want food, right? So I answer the door and they say, would you like some food? And I say, sure. And while they're bringing in the food, ice cream, I like Swan's ice cream, right? They're bringing it in from the truck. I say, hey, would you help me move my refrigerator? Oh, yeah, I'd be happy to help you do that. Well, what do you think their employer says about that? No stinking way. Why not? Liability. Not only because they scratch my floor as they do it, or break the refrigerator, the tube with the water attaches goes gushing all over the place, but they injure themselves or me in the process. I bet their employer says don't do that either. But if they did, that would be between the Swan's man and whatever. He's going to cook. He's going to be our personal chef. I don't know. That's a good one. Personal chef to me now. Hey, you do a fine job of delivering food. Can you make it? Oh, yes, I can. I mean, it's personal between me and them. But I'm betting the company says don't do that. All right. Yeah. So still another way of saying what we've said all along, and that is if the agent has no express, implied, or apparent authority before or afterwards, then they're liable. But, I mean, think about that in the context of that group discussion. If the facts were different and Brenda had no authority, not even apparent authority, who would be liable for what she ordered? She would. That's what I'm saying. And they would have said, pay up. She would have said, well, actually, I can't afford it. I told you that. Well, then she's made a fraudulent misrepresentation, hasn't she? She had no authority to do it. Now it's her responsibility. And, the other side of that is commodity sales would not be liable in any way for it. All right, e-agents. If an agent is just somebody who acts on behalf of somebody else as they deal with third parties, then eBay, Amazon, there's all kinds of agents on the internet. There are bots. There's these little electronic things that run around on the internet. They scurry around and do things on the internet. Like if you have a website and you're getting all these hits, you're like, oh, this is cool. I must be getting a lot of hits. Well, in a lot of cases, it's just these e-agents running around, gathering data, gathering information on the internet. So sometimes you use the internet to act as an agent for you to reach out and touch a buyer or seller that you can't directly. So agency law applies on the internet. And therefore, eBay will do what they can to avoid liability for what they do, right? They're going to make sure that they're acting within the authority that they've been given. They're not going to get involved in things they shouldn't be involved in. I'd mentioned earlier in the semester, if you have a dispute, they're going to tell you agreed to go have someone else resolve it alternatively versus bring them into it. Somebody last class told me they sell insurance. I haven't done anything on eBay in a while, but I mean, usually the risk is between you and the buyer or whatever.
Even
No?
if there's a problem with your
Right? That's what I always believe.
purchase and you can't resolve it, you have to go to that person first, but if there's no resolution, that way eBay guarantees the purchase. I've actually had them refund me money because something came.
Yeah, I mean, it didn't used to be that
I
way.
don't spend a whole lot on eBay.
Yeah, I
so
think it's up to like $200.
This guy was telling me about a jet ski.
why would you buy a jet ski on eBay? That's
Well, my father-in-law bought a Suburban on eBay. They sell all kinds of stuff. Sell planes on eBay. Right? So that's just kind of a weird thing. It's like if the seller can't make right on it, we will. I mean, to me that seems like insurance. That seems to be saying, earlier we were saying the principal doesn't meet their obligations, not our problem. But maybe we'll take that on for some reason, yeah.
I think because they use PayPal as a third party for themselves, or as a payment system for themselves, they're able to actually take back the money that if you paid with a credit card, reverse it. I think that's part of the authority.
Aha! So it's not like pulling stuff out of their own pocket. It's undoing what they did.
People that
Gotcha.
pull it out of PayPal anyway, so they can't pull it back.
Yeah.
So if I have a buddy that does a
It's
lot,
like you have a buddy scammer.
he doesn't scam.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's kind of a back and forth game. eBay comes up with something, and then the scammers come up with something. Yeah. Well, we can just take it back out of PayPal. Well, then we can get it out of PayPal before you take it back. You kind of keep it going. It kind of scares you a little bit to even want to deal that way. Yeah.
So can they pull money out of your bank account
Well, typically, people can't take things out of your bank account unless you authorize them to do it. Now, if you did, then they can. Right. So, yeah. I mean, just only getting into agent's authority. If you authorize somebody to do something, then they can. And they shouldn't be going into areas where you didn't tell them they could go to get it, but yeah. Definitely makes you want to read the fine print if you enter into some type of e-agency. All right, torts and crimes. An agent is responsible for their own torts and their own crimes. Several slides about this, but you don't get out of liability when you batter someone by saying you did it for your employer. Right? The only remaining question is whether your employer is liable for what you do tortiously or criminally. The second bullet. Principal may be liable for an agent's torts if they tell him to do it. Right? Go break somebody's arm to collect the debt. Or they're participating in it. Or they know about it and don't stop it. Or even know they have a propensity to do those type of things. If you find your employees joyriding around on a forklift. No one's harmed, right? But what's the problem?
You know about it.
You know, maybe other people know, and if they harm somebody in the future, that's the first thing that's going to come out. Yeah, they were doing it in the past. They were careless. Okay. Now, you can also have liability under the doctrine of Respondeat superior, which means you, the superior, are responsible for the acts of your subordinates. This applies only in an employer-employee relationship, because it's going to stretch the limits of what we've talked about so far. Because so far we've said if an agent acts with no authority, then the principal's not liable. Now we're going to say if an employee does something within the scope of their employment, even if the employer told them not to do it, the employer still could be liable for it. Don't drink on the job, and then they do, and then somebody gets hurt, the employer might have liability for that. Don't text while you drive. So this is, my last class is saying, this seems so unfair. Why is an employer should be liable for crazy things their employee? Well, it puts a burden on employers to supervise their employees and to make sure that they hire people who are trustworthy and won't do things that they shouldn't be doing. Now think about that if you were an employer. If you need to put somebody in a position where you can't directly supervise them all the time, it better be somebody you really trust. Yeah.
What would happen if you're an employer and two of your employees actually get into a fight with each other and one assaults the other? How does that all...
Yeah, there's all kinds of cases about what liability does an employer have for employees that get harmed on the job by customers or other employees. And, it goes down to if that person was your employee and they did it on the job, you may have liability for that. So if they have a propensity, think about hiring people who have criminal records. I'm not saying because they have criminal records that means they're going to do it again. But, if somebody's had past convictions for embezzlement or violence or things like that, you risk when you hire them and something happens, somebody saying, see, you knew that they had a propensity for that. So, that may not be what you're exactly talking about, but often when employees beat up on each other. It's not like surprise out of the blue. Not to say it can't be, but sometimes it's, there's something going on there, or one of the persons is known to be violent, formerly in prison, big time wrestler, I don't know, whatever it is. All right, so we mentioned that it applies only to employer-employee relationships. The principal or employer is vicariously liable. Remember, I mentioned that term at the start. Through their employees for the negligence that their employees commit during the course and scope of their employment. So you're in Lowe's and your forklift driver runs over a kid in one of the aisles. So why is that funny? It's not funny. It's mean. Then the forklift driver who wasn't watching what they were doing, negligent, has liability for that, right? But Lowe's could too. So what do they do to try to prevent that? They train them. They have a policy. They block off the aisle. They observe them. They put a flasher on it. They have a ground guide. They do whatever they can to say there was no way that we knew this was going to happen. But even still, you're just trying to prevent it from happening. It's not very often you can disclaim liability for what your employees do on the job. Now, if they do something criminal, like they bring a rifle to work and start shooting all the employees, then the question, and that has happened. Then the question is, did you know? Had it happened before? But if it's something criminal, then they're going to have liability. If it happened before, you probably shouldn't keep them, right? Yeah, probably, definitely. Yeah. Okay, this is a warning. No more shooting employees.
I know it's kind of an extreme example, but would that be like the same thing as if you had, like an employee who had issues with like counting the money, and then all of a sudden like they take it, like you should have got rid of them the first time, pretty much.
Yeah. Problems with counting the money? You mean like it just never comes up quite, right?
Well, we have gotten new register systems at my job, so for a while it was kind of up in the air. Like sometimes it'd be a little bit short, or it would be extra in the deposit the next day instead of it just be missing. But we've had a few different times of the same person counting the money wrong in the morning and at night and messing up the paperwork so bad that the money's just gone and nobody knows what happened to it. And I told my employer, like, that makes me really nervous, because if I'm closing and she's opening the next day and says my drawer's off, I'm in trouble. And, so that's why I was wondering.
Yeah, well, without addressing that particular point, I wouldn't give you any advice on that.
Obviously.
Testing. Is this on?
Yeah, no, but it'd be the kind
But
of
you raise an important point, is what liability do you as an agent who is supervising another agent? What do you have? I mean,
Right.
we've been talking about if the person steals, they're liable.
Right.
And then in what situations would the principal that they represent be liable? But your question is, when you're not the one doing it, but you're supervising them, do you have liability? I mean, we'll talk more about that when we get to employment law, but think things like sexual harassment. Something's going on, you're responsible for supervising, and you don't do something about it. There is the potential for liability there too. All right. So if we, the principal, the employer, are liable for things that employees do within the course and scope of their employment, then one of the things that we want to do is determine if what they did was within the course and scope of employment. There is a practical exercise question on this, taking 5 different scenarios and trying to decide whether it was outside the scope of the person's employment or not. So this would be a slide number 24. A good one to look at as you look at the practical exercise. And just like other tables we've shown you before, where there's checks on one side, checks on the other, question marks, obviously the court looks on this on a case-by-case basis, and it's not a mathematical formula. Notice the more serious the crime is, the less likely the employer is going to be liable for that, because crimes involve intent. Right? Unless you're telling your employees to do it, then you didn't intend for it to happen. But if you knew they were going to do it, or they were doing it, or you told them to do it, you might have liability. How was the employee's act authorized by the employer? I'll give you another scenario. When I was a prosecutor, there was a truck stop between Kalamazoo and Battle Creek. It was known for two things: crack cocaine and transvestite hookers. And you may ask, how did I know this? I would always see the results of that on Friday pretrials. You know, people be charged and they'd come in. Turns out the truckers, and this is on the next slide, the truckers would stop at this truck stop. They would claim innocently. Because, I mean, when you look at this list here, isn't it possible that they are in a time, place, and purpose consistent with their job? Wouldn't a truck driver pull into a rest stop? Sure. Even if it's off the highway, right? And in fact, the law required it. You can't drive too long without taking a break. It's what they were doing when they were there that was the problem. They didn't go too far off the highway. It's just what they did. And so there'd be a knock at the cab door, and somebody would say, while you're here, would you like to buy some of this illegal substance? And they would say, sure, why not? And then someone else would come later and knock at the door. And they open, they'd say, can I come in and rest in your sleeper? Being under the influence of the earlier transaction, they didn't notice that the person and the person would get in the cab, beat them up, and take all their stuff. Cell phone, wallet, anything valuable inside. Then I would see them Friday with a big shiner, and I would see the defendants too. And what's that? Yeah, I won't comment on that. But this is the question. Is there any way the employer should be liable for what they were doing? And then the answer is on the next slide, and that is it a detour or a frolic? I gave you that extreme example so you'd know what a frolic is, and it would ruin your holiday season. So now if you have any songs that you hear that have the word frolic in it, you can think of my example. It's way beyond what's part of the job, and an employer can't anticipate those type of things. There's another case where a trucker pulled off the side of the road, and he couldn't get his truck into the restaurant parking lot, so he went across the street and was eating. Now, is it okay for a trucker to pull off, go across the street, eat at a restaurant versus a rest stop? Sure. There's nothing that says all stops have to occur at a rest stop. So he went in there and he was eating. 6 hours later, he came out drunk and wandered across the highway. Yes, that's what it was. Guy comes by on a Harley, runs him over. Kills the Harley operator and the truck driver. The estate, a widow of the Harley driver, sues who? Good, right? They look at the name on the side of the truck and they say they got more money than the guy in the middle of the highway, and they sue the company. What do you think the court said in that case?
No.
They went through that reasoning. Was he an independent contractor or employer or employee? They said based on the name on the truck and all the circumstances, he was an employee. However, he was on a frolic. He started on a detour, but he went too far, and the employer should not have liability. Now, contrast between things that go on in cabs of trucks while the truck's going down the road. And there was a case where people, trucks will go across highways, across the median, smash into oncoming traffic, and it will turn out later, some cases they were sleepy, some case they were distracted, one case they were texting. I mean, you think, people texting in car, yeah, oh yes. Semi-truck drivers do everything while they're driving down the road. They do it all the time. They feel more confident about what they're doing. I mean, I think they also kind of understand the impact of what they're doing, but sometimes after a while they forget about it, or sleep deprived, lack the judgment that they need or whatever, and they do things they shouldn't. So, yeah, if you're texting while driving a very large vehicle and you get distracted, things could happen. Yeah, and it's you're a missile. And so, wasn't there a case, what was it, Andrew? There was a bus full of people, and a truck came across the median, smashed into them head on, killed them. And I think it came out that the person who's driving the truck was texting or sleeping or something. So it does happen. When I was in a prosecutor's office, a state trooper who was pregnant was giving somebody a ticket, and a truck driver just started watching the car and the truck and drove into her, killed her. I'm not sure about who they stopped, but that's why now, troopers don't park the way they used to park behind vehicles. So those kind of things happen a lot. What's that? Well, how they park, how they move their vehicle, and what's between, them and you. I just saw some footage. Right.
Like their grill was pointing your mirror.
Right.
And now they'll nose in. I've been pulled
Right.
over.
Got some expert testimony. In all my recent pullovers.
When they actually go to write your ticket or whatever, they back way up.
Especially with you.
Exactly.
This guy, he's going to snap any moment. Right. Did you see, there was just some footage on TV the other day where a police officer was doing that. They were on the passenger side, and a semi came by and drifted and clipped and shoved the car and into the police officer who was there, and the police officer survived because of that, but got hit and smacked off of the road. But if they had been on the driver's side giving a ticket, they'd have been gone.
I've seen the ones where somebody's mirror has broken on the
Yeah.
police officer's back.
Ooh. I got that. I got clipped that way, riding my bike. By a truck going full speed. Went right by me and smack. Got me right in the back. Big old bruise in my back. Anyway, so all that back to this, the employer says, don't text while you drive. Pay attention. If you're tired, pull over. All those type of things. But if they do that while driving, the employer can be liable for that. And then, think about all those other situations we just talked about. Who has what liability. Right? Even as you travel, you take a plane somewhere, you rent a car somewhere, you're off doing something. Is what you're doing with that car a detour or a frolic? Yeah.
Even if, she tried to sue the company, the truck driver, she tried to sue
Yes.
the company.
Yeah, and the court said no.
Said no. But even if she tried to sue him, wouldn't he still be the one, the driver, even though he was drunk? Wouldn't he still he's a pedestrian. He's walking across the street, drunk or not drunk. He's a pedestrian, and the driver hit him.
Yeah. that I think as a result of some real strict driver's training, people are under the impression that pedestrians have the right of way all the time, and if you hit them, no matter where they're at, you're always liable. That's not always the case. So now that doesn't mean ram them, because Mr. Brand said in business law you're good to go. I found somebody where they're not supposed to be. They're wandering drunk out on the highway. I can hit them. I'm not saying that.
Don't try to hit them.
Right.
But 20 points if you do.
Oh no. I would never. I would not say. I would not say that at all.
I'm not sure about
I would disclaim any responsibility for that comment. All right. So what about intentional torts? Still, you go into Walmart, and you're a little lippy as a customer. You know, whoever is trying to help you out is not really doing a good job, and you get upset at the clerk, and you're a customer, and you smack the clerk. The clerk just beats the crap out of you.
little old lady.
Or let's say like you're going into Walmart, and the greeter, right, just goes off on you, right? Even then, even if it's an intentional act, the employer could have liability for that. They're your agent acting for you. It's as if they are you. And if you, Walmart, are going to go crazy on a customer, you're going to be liable for it. No. I mean, there's certain things you can do to try to prevent liability. And really, if it goes to jury, often the question is, what did you do? What did you know? But just so you know, this doctrine says if they're your employee, they're on the job doing what they do, right, then you can have liability for it. I tell you about the Boy Scout that kind of went off on me the other day at Walmart. And I'm going to Walmart and they're selling something. What do Boy Scouts sell? Popcorn. Yeah, popcorn. Yeah. And I'm going in and I'm like, I got no cash. I got no nothing. I don't need any popcorn. I'm in a hurry. And so they're like, "Hello, sir. Would you like some popcorn?" "No, thank you," I said. Very nicely. I looked right at him. When I ran in, I'm like 2 seconds later, I'm back out. "Hello, sir. Would you like to buy some popcorn?" I just kept on. I hate that. I hate that when people don't even look at you or talk to you. They're just trash talking me behind my back. You know? I know. I'm like, come on here, Boy Scout. I'll give you some badges. So, like those.
boxing badge, right?
That's right. So anyway, not an employee of Walmart, but on Walmart property. What if the Boy Scout beats me up?
They have permission from Walmart.
It ain't gonna happen, but let's say. Right.
Because Walmart has to give permission for them to be out.
But are they an employee?
No, they're not.
Okay, so they're, at best, right? Probably they're not even contracted, right? They're just given permission to be there. Right. Can we set up a table, in your civic duties to the community? Can you let us have whatever? Sure, go ahead. So that's not Respondeat superior, right? It's not one of their employees out doing something on their behalf. So it's entirely different when it's a Walmart employee out there versus the Boy Scouts out there. And yeah, I already said that. Independent contractors, they are liable for their own torts if they do something wrong.
Are there exceptions to that? Of course, there's always an exception.
Well, I don't think there are many exceptions for you're liable for what you do yourself. Whether it's intentional, negligent, criminal, you have your own liability. The question is, in this class, are we extending that to anyone else, I think. Even this general rule, agent is liable, principal is not, unless they participated in the crime, et cetera, but that still doesn't mean that you, the agent, get out of it. Like if the principal is liable, you still are. Doesn't mean you get away with it. I mean, one of the questions that could come up is your employer making you do something that is unlawful. Can you be convicted of a crime that you didn't know was a crime?
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, statutorily, if there's a statute that says you do this kind of conduct, you're liable for it even if you didn't know it was against the law, then it's a criminal violation. And it doesn't matter much that someone else told you to do it. All right, so here's kind of a summary of what we've talked about so far. If you were going through an analysis here, you've got a worker or a worker. Apparently didn't have room in there, a little oval there for the R. First step, determine whether they're an independent contractor or an employee. So look back on those factors on page 490. Then, once you've determined that, general rule, if it's an independent contractor, you're not, the principal, liable for what they do because you don't control what they do. Unless there's a law that says you are. If you would have strict liability for injuring somebody with fireworks, you can't contract away that liability. You contract with somebody who's doing the fireworks for you, you're going to be liable for it. Employees, a little different. If they're your employees, you're going to be liable for things they do within the course, the scope of their employment. The way you're going to avoid liability is if what they did was not within the course and scope of employment, or another way to say that is outside the course and scope of their employment. Again, there's some areas it's real clear. They were doing it for you. There are other areas that are real clear. They definitely weren't doing it for you. What if your boss invites you out for a drink after work and then something happens on the way home? It's work, it's your boss, something happens on the way home. Most people would say no. What if it's a mandatory meeting off-site that you have to go to and then go home? What if it's a company picnic where there's alcohol or what? I mean, isn't it starting to get a little grayer? Like you're somewhere where it's not part of your job, but you're there because your employer told you to be there? So you've got to look at this in a individual case and figure out whether the employer is going to have liability for it or not. Yeah.
What about Christmas parties?
Exactly.
I was just thinking.
Or Thanksgiving parties, or happy winter party, or whatever. I mean, this is the situation. Can you have liability? And, you know, what type of things would you look at? Where is it being held at? When's it there? Who's been invited? Were you required to be there or not? I mean, all those things, that's a good example, come into play. Yeah.
Years ago when I worked at it's a retail store that sells food, our Christmas party, because they furnished the alcohol, if you attended the Christmas party, they paid for your hotel room because they didn't want anybody going home.
That may be why, right? That may be why.
Yeah, they actually furnished really nice hotel rooms at the hotel where they had the Christmas party.
Where was that?
They don't do them anymore.
Yeah. Why not?
I quit in
And you're not
94.
working there anymore.
Yeah, I stopped working there in 1994, and they weren't having me. So, sorry, guys.
All right, so moving on. I mean, it seems like things could happen in hotel rooms with your employees.
Well, it was complete open bar.
Yeah, wow.
I got to see some supervisors and district managers.
Yeah, that's a whole other issue.
Problems with the hotel. They
Things
probably-
getting
the hotel
destroyed.
Stopped inviting them back if they were having that many problems.
I don't think there was ever a problem. It was the fear of a problem. It was an older family that owned the company, and they just were called themselves looking out for their employees to have a good time and to make sure that you didn't get behind the wheel.
No, I mean, like the hotel though, like if you get that many drunk people and coworkers inside a hotel with hotel rooms, bad things happen. Anyways.
Who knows?
Came home last night, but you ended up
Okay, well, anyway. Boy, you guys can come up with all kinds of scenarios.
Lunch here.
All right, so how agency relationships are terminated. We talked a little bit about this in the third question on a group activity when Stan, the carpet salesman, became a real estate person and then the house burned down, right? It could happen. You guys are into scenarios. So remember, in that case, the agency was terminated how? By operation of the law due to what? Impossibility, right? So, there's a couple categories. Either the parties somehow make the agency go away or the law makes it go away. And one more reminder that even in these situations, while the agency might be terminated, we still have to be concerned about how it appears to third parties. So back to, if we fire Brenda, we still need to let people know we fired her. Now, we don't have to do it in ways like, hey everybody, we fired Brenda because she was a horrible employee and blah, 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 because what could that lead? That could lead to liability, right? So we just say, your new agent is, so-and-so is no longer has our authority, has moved on to whatever, now so-and-so.
Because even if you say it just didn't work out, that can be
Right.
liability.
Could imply something. Yeah, you have to be careful about that kind of stuff. All right. So, don't forget about apparent authority. Did I mention not forgetting about apparent authority? So I'm not sure if I said that one more time. Don't forget.
I don't think we should forget about
All right, don't. Was there something I'm forgetting? No. All right. So, termination by the parties. I hire a real estate agent for 6 months. After that 6 months, no more agency. I hire an agent for 6 months, but they sell my house. Purpose achieved. Occurrence of a specific event. Some of you mentioned that in the scenario, the group activity. This is a little different. This is a condition, really. Something happens or doesn't happen during the agency that causes the agency to go away. Short of impossibility, something different. Let's say I say, sell my house, and I want you to list it on the MLS service. And then they don't. And as a result of that, no more agency. A question or example?
I guess does this fall under breaking specific company policies? Or?
Could be. It could be that this agency will continue unless this policy is violated, or maybe it doesn't refer to the policy, but it says you do these things or don't do them. Yeah, that's a good example. Mutual agreement. We don't like each other. You can't sell my house. I don't want to sell your house. Or either the agent quits or the principal fires them. And then finally, notice of termination. What does that have to do with? Apparent authority. Don't forget about apparent authority. Right? If you're going to terminate the agent, let people know. Let them know, let others know. All right. Now let's say the law steps in and terminates the agency. We mentioned impossibility already, right? It can't be done. It can't be done is different. It could be done, and it's just really hard. Those are different things. Death or insanity. You remember earlier when I said the agent's capacity doesn't matter. It's the parties to the contract. But now I'm saying the agent can't be insane. Well, this has to do with the agency relationship. Not the contract to buy the house, but the agency relationship. If your agent is dead, they can't do anything for you. Does that make sense? They will not be able to perform. Or if they're insane or otherwise incapacitated and can't do their job. Change circumstances. I hired you to sell my house. Meanwhile, I sold it to someone else. Right? It's not that the house burned down. It's just there's no house for you to sell anymore because I sold it to someone else. Bankruptcy. Bankruptcy terminated contracts earlier. Now it can terminate agency relationships. And finally, war. What's it good for? None. Well, what does war have to do with it? Let's say I have an agency in another country, which is pretty common. Like if I'm representing an employer or I'm a subcontractor in somewhere else, then my ability to do construction